Con el paso del tiempo, los deportes se fueron incorporando al campo de los videojuegos, combinando dos pasiones diferentes en un mismo espacio. Títulos que hemos visto a lo largo de la historia, como lo son FIFA, NBA Jam o Madden NFL. Aunque no lo creas, si estas marcas no hubieran apostado por incorporarse a la industria de los videojuegos, no tendríamos una gran variedad de títulos de deportes que tenemos en la actualidad. Como ya viste en el título, voy a hablar de una franquicia de videojuegos que en el pasado nadie hubiera pensado que sucedería, principalmente por ser dos empresas rivales. Hoy voy a hablar de Mario y Sonic en los Juegos Olímpicos. Una serie de videojuegos que inició en el año 2007 para Nintendo Wii y Nintendo DS con el título de Mario y Sonic en los Juegos Olímpicos de Beijing y que terminó en el año 2019 con su última entrega, Mario y Sonic en los Juegos Olímpicos Tokio 2020 para Nintendo Switch. Una franquicia que fue un rotundo éxito y que contó con un total de 6 juegos, 4 bajo el nombre de Juegos Olímpicos y 2 con el título de Mario y Sonic en los Juegos Olímpicos de Invierno. Es aquí cuando entonces surge una duda en los últimos días. ¿Por qué se decidió por concluir una franquicia tan exitosa como esta? ¿Nintendo y Sega fueron los que decidieron no continuar? Para resumirles, el Comité Olímpico Internacional es el que decidió no renovar la licencia para seguir desarrollando más títulos de Mario y Sonic en los Juegos Olímpicos, pues decidieron ir a otros horizontes con nuevos socios para generar más ingresos. Actualmente la única desarrolladora de videojuegos que tiene los derechos para desarrollar títulos relacionados a los Juegos Olímpicos es Enway, un subsidiario de Animoca Brands y que recientemente hizo un título relacionado a los recientes Juegos Olímpicos de París 2024. Además, estos videojuegos también están relacionados con la estrategia de vender pines NFTs, por lo que ya vemos a dónde apunta ese horizonte de generar más ingresos. Regresando al tema, seguramente muchas personas pensarán, ¿Nintendo y Sega no hubieran podido generar una propuesta para seguir haciendo títulos de Mario y Sonic? ¿Es tan complicado volver a tener la licencia para seguir desarrollando títulos en el futuro? Para este video les voy a presentar un invitado especial que me ayudó a entender mucho más del tema y que se abrió completamente a hablar de esto para el video. Es por eso que hoy vamos a hablar con Lee Cooker, el productor ejecutivo que estuvo detrás de los 6 títulos de Mario y Sonic en los Juegos Olímpicos. Soy Rods y bienvenidos a Geekstation. Welcome to Geekstation, the best page about geek culture, video games, entertainment, and more. I'm Rodolfo Rodriguez, and today we're here with Lee Cocker, visual media specialist and game producer. Be welcome here, Lee.
Hi, and thank you for inviting me for this interview.
Can you talk more about you for the audience?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Lee Cocker. I'm from England, UK. I've been in the video games industry for over 20 years. I've lost count. It's been so many years. I had multiple roles on the very successful Mario and Sonic franchise, Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games.
What was your role in the Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games franchise, and what did you do in this role?
As I said in my introduction, so it was multiple roles. From my first title was executive producer or executive director, I can't remember, of visual elements and gameplay. So it was basically receiving documents and giving feedback on that. Having meetings with Sega and Nintendo, mostly Sega because they were the developers and also they sourced out some of their development in Japan. Getting code drops and giving feedback on code, so I would play the events and give feedback on the events. It would also be all the way up to marketing, so it would be the approvals of marketing, but a lot of it was also liaising with the IOC and getting their approval on the actual code. So I would have to go to Switzerland or Atlanta and present the code and demonstrate, this is how it works. And obviously with the first game in 2006, 2007, Beijing, I had to go to Switzerland and present to the president of the IOC at the time. And obviously a lot of people didn't know what the Wii was. And I took out a Wii to Switzerland, and I had this big boardroom, and I had to present and show that it was gestural gameplay. So it was like, running, and we had to show them like Wii Sports and how Wii Sports worked. And the president of the IOC got to play. He was trying to play the Olympic. He was trying to play the golf. I think it was golf or tennis. And he was struggling, but once everyone got the hang of it, everyone was very excited, and it was a perfect storm when the game came out. It was Mario and Sonic. It was the Olympic Games, and it was on the Wii, and the Wii was a new console that was going back into living rooms. It wasn't kids playing in their bedrooms. It became a family console, if that makes sense. But yeah, I had multiple roles, and in the end, I was an executive producer, and it was basically, again, giving my feedback on code, documentation, reviewing all the in-game text for like story mode, presenting to the IOC. So basically a liaison producer between me, the ISM, IOC, Sega, and Nintendo.
How born the idea for making Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games? Because I imagine the negotiations with Nintendo, Sega, and the International Olympic Committee was very difficult, and in the other part, probably a lot of people maybe think it. You're going to put in the same video games two companies who in the past involved a video games console world. That's crazy.
Yeah, it was... from my understanding from the initial... I was, as I said earlier, I was brought on and I was shown pencil sketches that my boss had been going to Japan, because obviously we'd just done Torino 2006, which I'd worked on. For Torino 2006, I edited and created the in-game movie for PlayStation 1 or 2, can't remember. And I did that but I had to create the in-game movie for that. I had to edit it from the footage from the game. And I created that. From my understanding, he had several meetings with Sega. Someone at Sega knew someone at Nintendo, and basically it was a lot of talks and a lot of people talking and coming up with ideas, and then it was presented to the IOC, obviously with my concept of the Olympic trivia, and it got it over the line, and it was all agreed, and everyone was agreed, and obviously I had to keep it secret for ages. I remember ages. I was waiting when we worked on the first announcement. I knew, and I hadn't told anybody, and it was like I knew how big it was going to be when it was announced. And the very first announcement trailer, I think I've put that on my social media as well. It had a very famous voiceover artist who does a lot of American. He's dead now. I can't remember his name. Don something. He'd done a lot of movie trailers. He was famous for movie trailers, and he'd done the voiceover for this. And they come out of the tunnel, and it's like you see their shoes, and it's like it still gives me goosebumps now.
Two great heroes competing for the first time in the same arena at the greatest sporting event on earth.
Now, but yeah, that's my understanding is it was a lot of talking, a lot of concepts. I think initially it was going to be Sonic at the Olympics, and then somehow someone knew someone at Nintendo, and it was like, oh, could this be done? And Miyamoto was talked to, and I know he loved the idea as well. So I think Sega know more than what I do. I was brought in probably about 2% of the way in of when it initially started. But the Olympic trivia is definitely my concept and what helped it get it over the line. I could be wrong. My boss would know more, but I believe it was going to be initially. It was just going to be Sonic at the Olympics.
Oh, that's very. I wanted to know that. That's very interesting.
People got to remember that it was Sega that did the initial publishing and developing. I think it was switched in in Japan. I can't remember the order around it, but it was basically in Japan. It was, I think Nintendo had the publishing rights in Japan and then Sega worldwide, and then it switched around. I think it changed for Tokyo 2020, but there was a lot of negotiating in terms of publishing rights and development, and it was, a lot of assets got shared from Nintendo, but it was a sub-license to Sega and Nintendo. But that's my understanding, that initially it was going to be just Sonic.
And about the license of the Olympic Games and the negotiations with the International Olympic Committee, in what year did you know the franchise will not be continued with Mario and Sonic?
I had my suspicions. I can't go into full details, but I kind of knew, and this is before COVID, I knew that I thought that Mario and Sonic Tokyo 2020 would be the last one. The company I worked for, ISM, who do fantasy football for the Premier League in the UK, and they've done a lot of other, I think they're doing fantasy for the NBA now. It looked like that it was going to lose the license with the International Olympic Committee, and obviously we'd sub-licensed it to Sega and Nintendo, so I thought that Mario and Sonic was going to be the last one, Tokyo 2020.
And if Sega or Nintendo try to convince or negotiate with the International Olympic Committee?
No, it wouldn't go through them. It would have to go through ISM, because they have we had the license at the time. There was some renegotiating, but that was more about Tokyo 2020 game after we lost the license, because obviously the Olympics being pushed back to 2021.
Okay, I want to make this question because it's curious for me, and I want to know, what do you think was the video game of the franchise more complicated to development?
What was more complicated? The online modes were, competing online was always difficult. The technology and stuff like that. That was always difficult with the last games that because I know we did it with Sochi. It's more about the difficulty is getting the balance right. Dream events, Olympic events, Mario characters, Sonic characters, the Sonic universe, the Mario universe, and getting the balance right, that everybody gets what they wanted. A few people have asked me about why was the Mii's not put into Tokyo 2020. My understanding at the time was we were releasing, people forget there was also the create your own character avatar game where you can create your own character and then play the Olympic sports, and there was loads of different costumes like Spaceman, Knight and Cowboy and stuff like that. So that was kind of like the Mii version of the Olympics, so that was why it was separate, and that was why the Mii's got taken out of.
Now that you're saying that, do you know or remember a concept that maybe you tried to implement in one of the previous games, but in the end it was difficult to put on the final product?
Trying to think off the top of my head. There was I can't go into detail, but there was a big plan for Tokyo 2020 that would have blown people's minds, and it's to do with Tokyo 2020 and what they were doing with pop culture and video game characters, and that's all I can say. It was the initial idea was really it would have been so cool if it had happened. And again, it's the mecca of video games. Japan. You've got Capcom, Nintendo, Sega, the whole list of games companies. Japan is the video game. So yeah, there was an initial idea that would have blown people away, and it's a shame that it didn't happen. I think it would have been really cool. And the other thing, it kind of tied into the handover ceremony in Rio when the Japanese president came out of the pipe. Do you remember that? There's a big video where he was going from Japan and he turned into Mario and he tunneled into Rio and he popped up. So yeah, it's a shame it didn't happen, but I can't go into further detail.
I want to make you another question. It's very interesting because it's an interesting concept that I saw it and I want to know. Mario and Sonic at the Rio 2016 Olympic Games is the first game of the franchise to have three versions: the Nintendo Wii U, Nintendo 3DS, and arcade. And then Tokyo 2020 put the arcade version back. So I want to know how born the idea to make an arcade version of this game.
Yeah, this was someone asked me this on Twitter. Basically, Sega at the time, I believe they've sold it. I could be wrong. They have a big arcade business, and obviously, if they're sub-licensed the Olympic game, they would want to make the most of it. So they proposed doing a Rio. The first one was the Rio arcade. Mario and Sonic at the Rio 2016 Olympic Games Rio arcade version. So it's basically for Sega to extend their business. You know, arcade was a big part of their business in Japan and worldwide. They still do a lot of arcade machines and arcade games. So that was part of their, you know, it was good for them, and it was also good for us because obviously we were doing the entertainment center in Rio in the athlete village, and we wanted to have arcade machines there, and I think we had about 8 machines set up in the athlete village for the athletes to play, which was very good. And it's also, you know, it's cross promotion. You know, people go to places like Dave and Buster's in America and they play, you know, Mario and Sonic at the arcade, and then they want to buy the console version or the handheld version. It's, you know, it does do well. And the arcade games were very, very popular from my understanding. And I was in America, I was in Texas last October, and I was in a Dave and Buster's, and I saw Tokyo was still there, and it was very popular, and the kids were still playing it. So it's basically, it's good business, and they were fun to make. And I think with the Tokyo one, we again had the retro mode in it and the retro events, and they were very, very popular, and I loved playing them. If I could have taken an arcade machine home, I would have had a Rio one, I would have had a Tokyo one in my house. I wasn't that lucky. I did try, seriously, I did try, but it's just, it was part of Sega's business plan.
Oh my god, but I hope in the future you can have the arcade again in your house and play with him, because I didn't have the opportunity to play in one of these arcades, but I saw some videos and looks very funny to play.
Yeah, the athletes in the village, they absolutely loved them. There were so many athletes that played the arcade machines, and it was very, very competitive. And you know, we did like who was getting the fastest times and everything, and the athletes would like compete in their event and then come to the entertainment center and then compete in the arcade version. And like I said on one of my tweets, there's a video of me racing. I think it was 100 meters. Yeah, it was 100 meters, and this athlete couldn't believe that I would beat him, and I beat him. But it was sensor pads, so if you go too fast, it doesn't register. So you have to pace it, so you don't go crazy with it. And obviously, I worked on the game, so I knew all the tricks, and I played it a million times before anybody else. So I knew all the tricks, and you know, even when I was working in the athlete village with the athletes, I would play it, and also I had to show the athletes how to play it, and it was very, very good. But you know, the arcade games were very good, and they were very popular, and you know, seeing them still in arcades, it always brings a smile to my face when I see it.
I want to quote a recent post that you published on X, where you presented a demonstration of the Mario and Sonic at the Olympics Winter Games Vancouver 2010 with the previous International Olympic Committee president in 2009. Can you describe the content that you shared with him? Like it was a tech demo or concept art?
It was a tech demo, so it was a dev kit, so it wasn't. I don't believe it was a full retail version. There was sometimes where it would be retail versions, and sometimes it would be dev kits with dev code. So it would be, for the people that don't know, the dev kit we had the green front on it. I don't know if anyone's seen any pictures of it. So it'd probably be the dev kit, and I would take it out to Switzerland. It would be a big boardroom. I think that time it was a big boardroom. There'd be TVs in the middle. In the IOC building, and then there would be like a big TV or projection. I can't remember what it was. It's in the picture, the game's in the picture. So we would do like a PowerPoint presentation of what we're working on, what the milestones are, some of the marketing assets, but also then I would do a code demonstration. So I would play like I think that one I did ski jumping, and would show the ski jumping, and we would show like all the characters, and obviously there was new characters added from the previous version. The president always enjoyed me presenting the code. He always remembered me. He knew I was the one that would always play the games, and he loved it. He saw the value in it. He saw the value in it, and he saw, how good the game was. And when I was leaving, I think it was that meeting, I was outside and I was waiting for my transport to take me to the airport. And he was coming out, and he saw me, and he came up to me and he said, "Oh, thank you for your presentation, and I always enjoy your demonstrations." And he kind of laughed and smiled, and he shook my hand. One of the other demonstrations, I don't think it was that one. I think I was in a room, I think it was in Barcelona, and there was about 200 people from the IOC that was in there. And I had to do a demonstration of Vancouver, and it was figure skating. And my boss told me, because he thought it would be funny, he said, "Can you show figure skating, and can you be one of the female characters?" And I was like, okay. So I was in this big room, it was like an auditorium, and there's me swinging the Wii remote to do the figure skating and getting all the poses correct and everything like that. And obviously I'd played it loads of times, so I knew all the moments and I got all my timings right. And he said, "Oh, can you mess it up at a certain point?" So I messed it up at a certain point, and everyone got a laugh. And I did the presentation, and everyone cheered and clapped at the end. So there's me, I'm sure there's probably video of it somewhere, of me in this big room presenting Mario and Sonic Vancouver as Peach and doing figure skating. And a lot of people came up to me afterwards and said, "Thank you for your presentation, we really enjoyed it." And they saw, I tried to show my enthusiasm, and, I'm a gamer, and the franchise, meant a lot to me, and I always enjoyed it, and tried to put my enthusiasm for these games in these meetings and get the importance of how big they are and how important they are.
Okay. Well, this is a specific questions, and you are open to answer, or maybe not if you can do it. But I want to know, how much did it cost to make each game of the IP? And if over time they will reduce it or increase the cost?
Yeah, I couldn't go into details about how much each game would cost to make. It was, it depended on the system, obviously the Wii and then the Wii U and then the Switch. So there's some increase because it's a new piece of hardware, if that makes sense. So if you've already developed one game on the Wii and then you go on to another one, some of the assets can be transferred across, so it's easier to develop, so it's less time. so the cost is less. But then when it's a new technology and there's an advancement, the Wii U and the Switch, some of them assets can't be transferred across, and then you have to create new assets. And obviously it's the getting to know, because obviously it was Sega and their third parties and their partners developing these games. So with the Switch and the Wii U, it's obviously again figuring out how these machines work and how to use them to their potential. Obviously with the Wii U, you had the screen with the pad, and then obviously with the Switch, it was, you know, a complete console, removable, and it was really important to make sure that the events would work on a TV screen as well as handheld. So the costs, I can't go into exact amounts, but it would vary. And obviously, like in-game movie, I think someone asked me on Twitter about the in-game movie. You know, some of it was CGI, and then it moved into character models, and again, it was saving costs and saving development time. So again, it's always, you know, there's only so much you would have in a budget, and there's only so much you can fit on a disc or a cartridge.
Okay, this is a personal question. Well, actually, the last two questions are very personal. What would your inner child think if he saw that he was part of the development of video games that implement characters from his childhood?
He wouldn't believe you. If you would have told me when I was a child that I would have worked on a Sonic game, he would have gone crazy. If you would have told him he worked on a Mario game, he would have, he wouldn't believe you, and he would be very, very shocked. But not shocked because obviously, you know, I've played games since I was young. I grew up on, you know, I learned coding when I was very young. It was part of my career path. I always enjoyed video games, so yeah, he would be very, very shocked, but I think he'd be very, very happy to know that he got to work with the two biggest video game icons. You can't argue that. You can't argue that. You know, if you said to anyone in the street, name a video game character, you know, 8 out of 10 times it would either be Mario or Sonic.
Okay, that's very beautiful to listen. And the last question of this interview is, what is the most precious memory that this video game franchise left you with?
Seeing little kids play Mario and Sonic, either console version, handheld version, arcade version. I remember I was in a retail shop and I was looking at some video games, and I saw a kid run up to his mum, and he was like, I want to buy this, and it was Mario and Sonic. I can't remember which version, but you know, and a big part of it is also my son. You know, my son grew up with me working on these games, and he was part of the initial idea of Olympic trivia. You know, he'll probably say to me later on down the line, I should be giving him money, but he grew up with me working on these games, and sometimes I had the dev kit at home, and I would it would be like something like Vancouver, and I would be playing it and writing down my feedback, and he would come in and he would get to play it before anybody else. And you know, when he was at school, I was the cool dad. So, you know, my dad works in video games, and some of his friends didn't believe him, and they came round to it. I said he could have a big party, and he had a party, and they were all playing like Pokemon and stuff like that. And then I got out the dev kit, and they played, I think it was London 2012, I think it might have been. And it was literally my own little QA team. They were picking up a lot of bugs in it. I was like, oh, I didn't see that, and I wrote it down and stuff. So yeah, him and his friends getting to play the game before it was even out. But you know, I was very lucky. I got to travel the world: Japan, India, Switzerland, Barcelona, America, E3, meeting the president of the IOC, going to Rio for the Olympics, going to London 2012 for the Olympics, closing ceremony. I was at the closing ceremony for Rio, and I knew about the Mario pipe thing. I was told in advance, and I was so excited, and I was telling everybody, oh, you need to watch it, you need to watch it. There's going to be a big video game thing. I can't tell you what it is, but there was a big video game thing. It's a big part of my life. It's a big part of my legacy. I've moved on to other games now. I worked at the BBC, I worked on Doctor Who games. Last year I worked on a Ghostbusters immersive experience. Ironically, I worked on Paw Patrol last year, so but Mario and Sonic is still like my baby, so it's, you know, incredibly important to me, and I have a lot of happy memories, but it's the legacy now. And even now, you know, when I put a tweet out saying, you know, sorry, there's going to be no Paris one, and the amount of stuff that's now come from that, and people messaging me and emailing me, thank you, it was my favorite game, it was my childhood. That means a lot. That means a lot.
I'm very happy to listen, yeah.
No, it's fine.
And also that you have an incredible experience with this video game franchise, who a lot of people who is now teenager or an adult, when he was a child, played these games before and love it. That's, for example, my case, and I want to say thank you to you also for these incredible video games, and hope that you can increase in this video game industry, making a lot of video games for people who love this. So thank you for your job.
Thank you.
All right, so this is Lee Cocker on Geek Station. Thank you for accepting this interview with me. And very noble. That show the shirt.
Yes, Mario and Sonic was a limited edition for London 2012. So
yeah, it's a very beautiful shirt. I want also a shirt like that. So yeah,
I also have just to add, I also have I think people have messaged me or sent a picture of it. I do have the snowboard as well. There's a snowboard for Mario and Sonic that we got for Vancouver 2010, and it's a big snowboard with all the characters on it, and it's very, very, very cool. So I have a snowboard as well, and a couple of Mario and Sonic t-shirts, and of course I've got every copy of the game. So yeah,
that's a cool collection. Thank you for accepting this interview with me and being open to talk about this franchise and share with our audience who is gonna watching this video later. In the description, I'm going to put the social media and the portfolio of Lee Cocker if you want to know more about his job. And also remember that you can find Geek Station in all the social media like Geek Station, call or open the link tree that I will leave you there.